Hello again, everyone. My name is Steve Johnson, and welcome to the next segment of Wine Wisdom. Today's topic will be wine vocabulary. Our goal at Parallel 44 and Door 44 has always been to demystify or reduce the confusion regarding wine. In the end, it's fermented grape juice. There are technicalities to it, but nothing that the average person can't understand and enjoy. The word that typically is used to describe the experience of wine, whether you're in a tasting room or reading a wine review, is the impressions of the wine that are left on your palate. Palate is just a fancy term for a tasting surface, which obviously is your tongue. Now, the key thing to remember about all wine terminology is that the excellent wine is determined by whether the wine is balanced. So now I want to talk about what are those elements that need to be kept in balance. One should think about white wine differently than red wine in terms of its elements and components when we're talking about balance. I've drawn this diagram here. This is the core elements of a white wine. These are the core elements of a red wine. They are virtually identical except one additional factor with red wine. So the aroma, bouquet element, the acidity element, the alcohol element, and the sugar element. Same factors as with red, but now we've added the additional element of tannin, which can really change the impression of that wine on your palate. So let's get a little bit deeper into what each of these elements really mean when we're talking about it. So the aroma, bouquet element, those terms are used interchangeably, but if you really wanted to break it down, aroma is basically a description of the flavors and the smells that you're getting from the grape itself. And the bouquet is incorporating the fruit and the floral aromatics of the grape, but also is a reflection of how that wine was fermented. Was it lying on the lees for a while? Was it aged in oak? Those additional winemaker elements are incorporated in the notion of bouquet. So the terms are often used interchangeably. This is the more complex expression when talking about the smells of a wine. Now when we talk about sugar, two common terms are brix and residual sugar. Brix is a French term that refers to the percentage of sugar or solids in the grape before they are harvested. Residual sugar refers to the remaining percentage sugar in the wine. The scale goes from dry to sweet. Dry is a kind of an odd word to talk about a beverage, but what it means is that there is 0% or virtually zero sugar in the wine. Off-dry, sometimes often referred to as semi-dry, semi-sweet, is in between the dry and the sweet. And sweet often refers to wine that is like 4 or 5% sugar, into the dessert wine category sometimes. I'd also like to point out the word fruit forward, a term that's often confusing to people because when you look at a tasting note and you're at a winery and they're talking about grapes, they keep referencing fruits like cherries and raspberries and blackberries. Well, we're not using those fruits in the wine. It's just a way of saying you're going to smell raspberries and blackberries and cherries, and that comes from the grape components themselves when they ferment and age, express themselves through those aromas. And the key thing to remember about sugar is it is probably affected, the sweetness is probably affected more by alcohol, acidity, and tannin than these other three are affected by other things. Because what really sugar is doing is it's reacting to the alcohol, acidity, and tannin on your palate. People are often surprised to learn, when they say, well, I only like dry wines, I wouldn't like a Riesling, but they may also really enjoy Coca-Cola. Well, people will be surprised to learn that Coca-Cola has 11% sugar. A semi-sweet Riesling is 2% sugar. So that can of Coca-Cola that you enjoy has 5 times the sugar than the sweeter Riesling that you say you don't like. Again, that's a reflection of the acidity, tannin, and alcohol and their interrelationship with the sugar on your palate. Now, alcohol is really a balancing of the right component of the structure of the wine. So if someone says the wine is hot, what they mean is that it's really high in alcohol. And that can sometimes, if a wine is 13, 14, 50% alcohol, it gives you the sensation of sweetness sometimes. So don't confuse high alcohol with a sweet perception on your palate. Acidity, that's again a scale. Flabby meaning you don't really get a sense of acidity on your palate. Soft is a good example of this would be the Cuvée. That has a medium range of acidity, not super high, but which would often be referred to as bright. If something is a bright wine that has a lot of acidities, for instance, the Glacier Fumé, a white wine, its structure comes from its acidity. So that's something you really want in a white wine, is that brightness, that fruit forwardness is enhanced when there's a nice backbone of acidity to a white wine. And tannin, that is a reflection of, well, really just acids, natural acids that come from the skins, seeds, and the oak barrels that the wine may have been resting in. And the terms that you often hear with tannin are, the tannins are sharp or angular, meaning they're relatively young, they haven't really gelled together so that they feel soft on your palate. And round and full kind of references the tannins that basically develop over time in a barrel or in a bottle as they sort of link together. They're like little polymers that link together, and the longer the chain of the tannin, the smoother you experience it on your palate. Those are the terms you commonly see. There will be other terms that we'll talk about in the future, but this gives you a good background for you to not feel intimidated when you walk into a tasting room or read about a wine. It's again exploring your taste, which is our mission here at Parallel 44 and Door 44. And so until next time, cheers.